Hey, everybody, this is Chuck Marone. Welcome back. We're going to chat again here in our ongoing series with my good friend Joe Minicozzi at Urban 3. Today, we are planning to talk about a suburb outside of Phoenix. Is that where it is, Joe? Joe, you
Yeah.
disappeared on me. Yeah, okay. We're going to talk retail tax. We're going to talk strip malls. We're going to talk finance. This is going to be super exciting. Joe, what's the name of this place? Gilbert?
Gilbert, Arizona, outside,
Okay.
just kind of next to Mesa. Let me, yeah, you mind if
Yeah.
I just start
No,
sharing
no,
screen?
share your screen.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
let's
That's
do
no
this.
one wants to no one wants to look at us, man. We're
Who cares about us? Um, so Gilbert's a fascinating place. And again, East Coast bias. We don't have cities like that. Well, I guess Arizona, Atlanta is kind of like this, but this is just looking at the map. There's Phoenix.
yeah.
Um, and there's all this stuff that just kind of oozes out of it. Gilbert's sort of over here.
Dude, you
But let's
need
go
more
back.
you need more tabs open.
Oh, okay. I could do that. Um,
uh, okay,
so
I've been here before. I don't know as I have been specifically here, but I've been in this part of the Phoenix area. So I know what you're talking about.
well, what's sort of fascinating about it? I mean, Google does a pretty good job telling you where the downtown is, if there was one that exists.
Right.
Um, and so there's not a whole heck of a lot of there. There's just this like 2 or 3 blocks, and it's surrounded by parking on either side. If you go to, let's go to Joe's Barbecue for a second. Let's look at Street View. I mean,
Okay.
it's a pretty nice little main street. They've this by the way, if you ever get there, this Topo um burrito joint with this little groundhog on the roof is super
Oh
good.
yeah.
They have really good ice cream there,
Do
soft
you
serve.
do you do you have this happen to you where like you've actually been to a place but you forgot? I always feel bad. Like, have I been here? Like, I probably gave a talk here and I don't remember. Um, but that place, I think
Well,
I would remember. It looks like a
you'd
place
rem-
you would drag me to too.
yeah, you'd remember that.
Yeah,
So, but here's the thing: it's the town of Gilbert, and it's 273,000 people.
yeah, that's crazy.
It's
I
it's
mean, Lafayette is 200,000. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
the city of Brevard, North Carolina, is only 7,000 people. I do think there's something in a place that psychologically where you're at when you're either named a town, a village, or a city. There's how do you handle your problems? So they've got city problems. It's 273,000 people.
right.
If you just leave this little area and go a couple little blocks this way, um, one of the things that's kind of insane is they strode out real quick.
Yeah.
Super exceptionally wide lanes. And it's sort of kind of intense. This is the necking down to get to those 2 blocks, which are literally
Oh,
like 1 block away. So they have a lot of pavement. And Anyway, so for Gilbert, one was going in is you want to help, you've got to figure out how to show their information. And just for the audience, we have this table that we keep of the different states and how they operate. Arizona at a
there
local
we go.
level, can you see it?
Yeah,
Arizona
yeah.
at a local level runs mostly off retail tax. In this orange rusty color here, the blue is the property tax, but most of that goes to school systems.
Sure.
Actually, no, we made a little dollar bill breakdown of that. Let me kind of jump ahead to that. So this is
Okay.
this is what that looks like. So 56% of the dollar goes to the school district. The city gets 9 cents out of the property tax. So they're really running off the sales tax. By the way, we have this kind of like, that's a cartoon Joe on the slide to explain it.
Okay.
It's me in my suit. But anyway,
You look good, man.
thank you. Yeah, it's a much less tired looking version of Joe. Um, so helping people try to understand and just being honest with the data. Again, one more thing. Actually, let me go back for a second.
Yeah.
When y'all are, for the audience, when y'all are looking at your revenue sources, several of the states make it almost impossible to get the retail sales tax data. Arizona is one of them, not as bad as North Carolina. So if you can't see the data, you can't really understand what's going on. And I would just say, if you're going to start to do anything as a Strong Towns member, start to advocate for transparency and access to data. If it's taxation that's running your government, you should know where it's coming from.
We in Minnesota, we can get like block level, but I think they aggregate it down some ways so that let's make a steelman case for not sharing the data. I think, to me, governments sometimes are sensitive to, if we show how many sales you have, it's like a competition thing. Like your competitors can see what your sales are. On the other hand, in Minnesota, what they've tried to compromise with is give like block level data. So, if you go to a place like Baxter, where I live, the block may be huge because it may include Walmart and Costco and a whole bunch of places. If you go into the core of the city, the block might be an actual block, and you can't really aggregate one business from another, but you get a sense of what's going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's Minnesota's a little. They actually let, like, you can get the Mall of America data. We just can't display it as Macy's versus Bloomingdale's. It's
Right.
There's things that we typically have to sign for confidentiality, and for the purpose of the models, you don't need to show it. But yeah, there's different states operate different ways. But here they don't have that. This is Maricopa County. It's sort of kind of spreads all over the place. And you can see downtown Phoenix and Tempe in here in this kind of run out to Scottsdale. We didn't refine this whole model because it'd crush a computer to do it. So we mostly polished this area with this little quadrant that goes from Tempe to Gilbert. Downtown Tempe is actually doing all right. What's kind of phenomenal about this, let's kind of go over to downtown Tempe for a second. Because I was surprised that Tempe is 500,000 people. Let's find you, Tempe. Oops, gotta spin you around.
500,000.
Or sorry, Mesa is 500,000.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's just astounding to me. I mean, I think sometimes when you're Midwest, I think sometimes when you're East Coast, the scale of some of these Southwestern cities is just astounding. I mean, I saw a thing once, the largest population cities in the country, and how many of them were California, like shag rug kind of places on your map, right? Just like over and over and over again. So this is Tempe.
So this is Mesa. This is downtown Mesa.
Okay.
And there's a transit line going right down the street, and not exactly the biggest buildings on the planet.
Okay, I have spoken here. I did give a talk right on this street in one of these, in like a stand-up club. It was pretty cool.
So on a positive side, that there's this big arts facility, but they are thickening up. They are putting their foot to the floor a little bit to add in these buildings and doing some density. So that's happening. Yeah. So Gilbert is in the process of figuring that out as well. So let's kind of jump ahead to some key elements. One of the things that we did with this is run a set of slides on different building typologies. So we have residential across the top, low density, medium density, high density, commercial, low, medium, and high, and mixed use. And then these are the property tax productions. So something like medium density housing is coming in at 5.3 million an acre versus low density at 880,000. And it's not that big a jump up here, but you see the change when you get into mixed use. You see the jump that happens. And that's, we're talking 3 to 4 story buildings in their mixed use, nothing huge.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting. Now let's go ahead and jump into the retail tax for a second. This was kind of a little funky to get into. But it's 60% of about 60% of their taxes. Now the way that breaks down, they have retail and restaurant is the lion's share. there's actually retail tax that comes out of leases, construction projects, utility, and other. But basically, the conventional, what we know is retail tax, is restaurant and retail. Now, the construction stuff, if you run into a recession, that's gone. You're not going to get any building permits and stuff like that.
Right.
But
Pretty volatile.
basically, from a city standpoint, there's also retail taxes of, let's say you buy something on Amazon and you live in Gilbert, that's going to be sort of a generalized retail tax outside the employment areas. That stuff, 64% of the sales aren't coming from Gilbert transactions. They're happening in Gilbert, but they're basically somebody else's money or
Really?
shop. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So
that's a significant number.
correct. Well, and also there was I think in North Carolina's case, their retail taxes became opaque because the state was pushing to get tax on Amazon. I don't know if you remember back in the day that you could buy something on Amazon and be no sales
Totally.
tax.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
when you see the numbers like this, you can see how it could hurt a place when those transactions are out there. So kudos to the state for the states for actually calling them retail transactions. That makes it more fair for local businesses to have that competition. But
Right.
the thing is, the thing that's weird is that my state gave away the info. They're like, okay, in exchange for us passing this rule that we're going to tax on Amazon, we're going to go ahead and make all the retail sales opaque so that no one sees them, which is kind of silly. It's like, if I can see, if you and I are both selling shoes and I see how much taxes you're selling in your shoes, I don't know what your cost of business is. I don't know what your rent is. I don't know what you're paying your team. I don't know if you have health insurance for your staff or not. There's like lots of costs that aren't there. Anyhow, so we applied the like a layer of butter. This is everybody's taxes from stuff outside the district. Then we're able to draw in several districts where the high transactions are. Heritage is what they would consider their downtown. So just breaking those pieces out, which are geo-specific, here's how they look in Central. Central's kind of killing it with 36% or 36 million in sales per year. This is Gateway, Banner, Heritage, which is their old downtown, and this area called the Northwest. Now, this is them from a 3D chart thing. This is just turning it all into a bar chart. Okay, so if you just looked at the data this way, Central is crushing it. Northwest is coming in at second. Now you can see, just as from the images and city planning, you see the big boxes in Gateway and also the Northwest. Well, when you start to do the value per acre, the production per acre, it shifts. And Heritage, with just those two little blocks, actually is quite productive for its district. So, this was validating because they're doing a downtown plan. This shows that what little area that they have has a great sense of place. I mean, there are people walking up and down the sidewalk. There's folks gathering there to go get ice cream, to go to restaurants and bars and things like that. So it has a good sense of place and feel to it. They just need more of it for their city size. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still getting my mind wrapped around a couple 100,000 people, and you have two blocks of good walkable downtown, and it's this potent, right? I mean, it's killing it to that degree. Yeah, it seems like more than a missed opportunity, right?
Well, check out this. In 1990, they were 30,000 people. They went from 30 to 109 to 208 in the span of 20 years. That's rapid growth. Now, what's going on with the retail sales is the retail sales is going to rise with your population. So as you add more people, they're going to be spending more. But also I guess the dark side of retail is once you hit that limit of growth of people, retail is going to cannibalize other retail areas. That new strip mall is going to take away sales from another one in the area, unless you're adding more people or adding more revenue in people's pockets. Their sales don't jump as much as, let's say, property value would. So anyway, that's kind of that. So going back to the model in that chart, let's see.
Can I restate that, Joe, while you're switching? Because sales tax is such a cash cow sometimes. And I know cities look at it as like, okay, it's this great thing, and if we can just land this bunch of auto dealerships, or we can land the restaurant, hotel, convention center place, we can generate a whole bunch of sales tax, and that will be like a wonderful thing. But your sales tax, in a sense, from your own population, let's say your own population stagnates, that means your sales tax from your own population, I mean, unless all of a sudden everybody becomes much wealthier and has a lot more discretionary income and is spending a lot more, your sales tax kind of peaks, it kind of levels off. And then you wind up just geographically either trying to steal from your neighbors, like, how do I get your sales tax, or how do I get your people to come and spend here? Or you are, in a sense, cannibalizing one over the other. Like, if we got the old strip mall here starting to look a little bit dated, let's get the new strip mall with the new shops and the new stores and the latest thing over here to keep this thing going. And this ends up, from a tax standpoint, almost being like a downward spiral at some point, right? Like you tap out on it. Am I summarizing that fair?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's if we're to play the policy out, it makes total sense to have a retail donut in your city at your borders,
Sure.
so that I'm getting you to come into my city and drop your retail dollars and leave as fast as possible. So then I don't have to put your kid in school. I don't have to pay for your police department. It's, so you see that Colorado,
in a Machiavellian kind of way. That makes the most sense, right?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
If you're following the policy, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Realpolitik. Yeah.
And I saw that we saw this in places in Colorado and California because of the constrictions on their revenue streams. They do the same thing. This is a different animal because of how fast it grew and how. I mean, this isn't the only place that's growing like this. Mesa is doing the same thing. These places just blew out so fast. There is a question of water. Can they actually afford all of this? People, now that you've got them there, can you actually get them water? We did an analysis of Imperial Valley, California, which is down near Mexicali.
Sure.
That one county has more water rights than all of the state of Arizona. Let that wash over you, pun intended. So this state's got other things to wrestle with.
Right.
But anyhow, this is the property tax production, and then one of the things that we added into this was the sales tax. Now, obviously, residential doesn't sell anything, but when you put the two of them together, you can see how something as modest as this commercial double-story building is crushing it on property tax, but also with the sales tax. That's really good. Whereas something like a strip mall, you're gonna get or Walmart, you're gonna get a lot of retail taxes, not a whole lot of property tax out of it.
Right.
And then the downtown mixed use building is doing both in production. So this is the property tax model, and we kind of had to flatten that out because we brought in the retail tax. And so this is the sales tax stepped on top of the property tax, basically. So the property tax isn't as much. So you see it all as this red kind of haze through here. But when you stack it on the retail areas, you start to see how they pop up. Now, there's a couple of things that are kind of from a city design standpoint. They actually have an opportunity to not necessarily just have one downtown, that all of these other places, because of the size and scale of the city, you could be multi-nodal at this point. Maybe not a big downtown anywhere, but you could have a series of smaller versions that have a walk shed around them for different districts. So that's an opportunity that they have. But the question is, they're set up under a certain level of bones, the street network that's there. There's going to be a lot of Stroad repair that has to go on in this place for the amount of lane miles of roads that they have. So that's that aspect. Actually, speaking of roads,
well, that was the other part I was thinking. With 200 and some thousand people, I mean, you would think they would have multi-nodal neighborhoods, right? Like, I mean, you're going to need more than one downtown. You're going to need a bunch of walkable neighborhoods ultimately. But
well,
go ahead, Joe.
No, they're going to have to mature up from the strip malls that served an area. That stuff needs to be repurposed. But they have
Right.
enough roads, their lane miles. I mean, there's a huge liability. If you can spread their roads from Gilbert to Providence, this is not insignificant. And I mean, seriously, it is an insane amount of asphalt in this area.
Well, when I was looking at that Wikipedia page you showed, the first thing that jumped out at me is the echo is coming, right? Like you built all these in this short period of time, and now they're all going to fall apart within like a decade and a half of each other, and that's going to be the echo. So keep going.
Yeah, so there's 2,600 lane miles. We estimated their cost to be about 123 million. Now we didn't do a full dive into this yet. This was just a
Right.
back of the
Rough.
envelope. What do you have?
Yeah.
They do have some private roads, but this is a typical pattern, particularly in Sunbelt, Southwest Florida does a lot of this. These kind of mile grids with the dendricular stuff on the inside of the square
Yep.
that causes and forces that transportation pattern to be hyper intense in the collector roads.
Very Strody.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is going to require a different level of surgery, but basically these are the revenues and their current capital expense. They've got about $62 million that come in. Their current costs are about 68 million. So just right now they're at a simple deficit of $6 million. When you put in the life cycle costs, if we're to think strong Townsian about this and what's the long-term obligation that we should be carrying with us on an annual basis, they're really at a much larger deficit of about 61 million. So this is the heart attack that they have to get ready for. Now to their credit, they're willing to talk about this stuff. They know they have to do things differently. So this has been a very positive project. But we basically wanted to give them a bar chart to show them where they run out of money. Basically, that they have about 51% of their roads are affordable. So another way to go back to that map and say, okay, you've got these roads to Providence, you run out of money in St. Louis somewhere. So that's kind of how that's going. They're doing some infill projects. Let's kind of go through those. And this is for folks that are doing infill in your community. Just a simple before and after picture of here's what was there. This is what they added into their downtown. And now we have these GIS models. So we went ahead and just had, before that building was built in 2018 and then after, and showing them this is a spike. So that's pretty cool that there's an opportunity to do that around the community. So back to that downtown, the blue parcels that you see hazed out in here, those are all city-owned tracks in the downtown. That's something, there's nothing to stop them from doing anything. They do have a project. So this one's done, which is right in the center here. This is a project that's been in the approvals that they're going to be doing on the north part of downtown. So we went ahead and figured that what that would be in the future. And you're looking at purple to the top end of the histogram colors. So you can achieve a purple with a that's like a 5 to 6 story building, 4-story building.
Right.
Very potent with modest buildings. We're not talking skyscrapers here. So here's the current position, and here's what they're going to add when that's put in. And so we showed them the tax gains. So you're going to basically almost double the taxes with this one project for the district, which is cool.
Joe, is this taking land that's largely parking lots, or are these like old strip malls, or what is it? What is it they're repurposing here?
Well, it's mostly parking lots.
Okay. I find this part of the world is so disorienting often because of the 1 mile by 1 mile Stroads and all the just vacant. I mean, when you get out and walk this, especially if you ever walk it in the sun, it can be so overwhelmingly vacant in terms of like the way it feels. The little part of Mesa you showed that I've been, this little area here, we can kind of solve a number of problems at once by dealing with those parking lots. And that it's kind of exciting if that's what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, you see these blast zones of vacant land all around. You've got your 2 or 3 blocks, and that's it. Now they do have the option of, this is a mixed use building that has a shared parking facility. So they can essentially use that as chips to,
Yeah,
just to be honest, I mean, the banking industry hasn't caught up to this type of development yet. They still require
it's
all
true.
of these projects to be parked at an obscene rate, or they're not going to give financing. I mean, sometimes developers run into that. That's an honest problem
Right.
in communities. So, we have to, I wish banks would change faster, but banks aren't exactly known as being the most progressive things on the planet.
Right.
Um, so anyway, those are those projects and what they do. And then this is another one. Um, this is essentially townhouses and a cafe, some six live work units, and a retail restaurant. So nothing huge. Let me go back. Sorry, I went a little too fast there. As an urban designer, I'm not a big fan of super blocks. I don't, but to be honest with you, they've got so many damn streets they could lose a couple.
Right.
And um,
Yep.
so that's what's going on here. And even something as small as that, it's going to add $57 million worth of value, or about $1 million more taxes. And so taking all the blue stuff, we just went ahead and just said, well, why not? Since we have all of these other existing projects, we're just going to go ahead and paste those values in too. Um, and it's a lot of real estate. And we just used what they're already building in their downtown just to kind of give them an idea of what that would be, to go from that to this. So
Wow.
that's about a $4 million jump in new taxes. Um, so adding them all up and just looking at them, the hard part is you don't want to get into a situation where it's just dream sky in the sky, kind of just build it and they will come kind of thing. Um, People can get into trouble with that kind of thinking, but you do
Sure.
have to start to get people to visualize that growing up is going to be worth the effort in this area, because there's a lot of naysayers that are just like, we shouldn't be a downtown. This is going to change our culture of who we are and all that. And you can't get past that until you can inspire people to realize the vision. It also is, from a developer standpoint, having worked in real estate development, you don't want to go against the community and try to bring everybody along. You need that kind of help. And if I'm going to go through the effort of financing, getting it through the building process, pulling all the permits, finding a contractor, all that stuff takes effort. You don't want to make it more complicated to build the density and the mixed use stuff than it would for me to just go out and do a strip mall.
Right.
If it's easier for me to do the strip mall, I'm going to do the strip mall. I mean, it's just common sense. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, we just wanted to give them a roll up of what their
Yeah.
potential is in this area, and we just made a stack of it, the existing tax revenue and what you can gain from it. So it's about $8 million a year. Um,
I
does that make
feel like,
sense?
yeah, I feel like we talk so much about infill as like this theoretical thing, right? What you're talking about is taking a core downtown that is actually some of the most potent property they have right now, that is well liked and well appreciated, and not transforming it into something different, right? You're not going in with storage sheds. You're not going with skyscrapers. You're going in with something that actually matches and is consistent with the pattern of development that's there, making use of empty space. We're not even talking about dislocating anybody, tearing anything down, or doing anything like that. You're just using the existing space, and you're having that transformation. I feel like, sign me up, right?
Well, in some communities where um you're in that, we just grew really fast and this is who we are, like, people don't realize they are a city at this point. They just think that, like,
Right.
oh, I work over there in Mesa or Phoenix or whatever, and I just live here in Gilbert. It's like, this city's got to function. You can't have all of this blown out space. And for them, this is a sizable change to go from our existing cute little 2 block downtown, and now all of a sudden it's going to get 3 times larger. It's like, yeah, it should be. One of the things that was sort of on our website, and y'all can go on this, go to Urban 3, and we made a thing, we call it Urban Mirror, where you can put in 2 cities and it will put the camera at the same height above the earth, so it's the same scale. So these 2 images, on the right is Asheville, my town of 98,000 people, and that's my downtown. On the left is Gilbert, 273,000 people in its downtown. And I showed them, I said, like, so here's your downtown, here's mine. My
Right.
downtown is worth $2 billion, for
Mhm. Mhm.
98,000 people. So it's like people come to visit my downtown. They buy t-shirts, they eat ice cream. They do the same thing on Gilbert, but you
I was
only
going to
have
say ice
two
cream.
blocks. I
We
did.
may have had an ice cream or two together in your downtown.
I'll tell you, I got the prickly pear ice cream at Topo. Prickly
Yeah.
pear with a lime hard shell is to
Okay.
die for. It's the best thing
Oh,
ever.
all right.
Um,
I'm in.
okay, but anyway, so it's like I I want to feel for folks in Gilbert because contextually they don't know anything else other than this downtown, right? I
Right.
know
Right.
Asheville's downtown. Some people in Gilbert may have even visited my downtown. And to think that they can't have this, which is kind of amazing that back in the like what level of people from UFOs just came in and left us this great downtown in Asheville. So we're
Right.
lucky to have this. And that used to be common sense. Now it's not so much anymore. So
Right.
um, for me, this image matters. It helps me understand the opportunity for them. This is probably pretty shocking for them
Yeah.
to show
That's
them
really
this.
powerful. Let me ask you this as like a last question. Can you talk a little bit about just the leadership there? I feel like there's, the I know that cities invite you in, you work with them, you help them analyze these things, you help them talk it through. There's a lot of, I think it would be easy to say, wow, you guys really screwed this up. I know that your approach is really, all right, this is what we've inherited. We the North American development pattern, you are a kind of a function of where you were in place and time. Um, what does it take for local leadership to actually start asking these questions? Like what is it that's special about a place like Gilbert that makes them say, this may force us to ask some tough questions, but these are tough questions we need to wrestle with.
They have a very uh, I guess advanced management team that they know that these problems are coming. The city manager, I think he's been there 12 years. It's he cares deeply about the community and also about getting the information out there in a way that people can understand it. I think there's a humility from a staff level that they know they have to try differently to reach the elected officials. And so my role when I went there I was their lunchtime um, sort of lunchtime entertainment with Joe, and here's some data in the middle of this all day long work session that they were doing with city planning. I know that it's a little mind bending when you've been doing these like planning exercises of what kind of building do you want to have on a parking lot? How big is it going to be? And you're trying to help elected officials understand the dilemma of what comes with real estate development that you have to change or change. Well, you can't say no to everything because you're saying yes to something else. You will change whether you like it or not. So either be part of that change or accept your fate. So they're going through that exercise, and the staff was very prepared on all of this. The counselors, the elected officials were there. They're part of this exercise, so they were primed to kind of think differently about this. So it was kind of a nice exercise to go through. No one threw their sandwich at me, so it was accepted. The city engineer knows that there's a looming problem. Oftentimes we find with the engineers, they know it. They just culturally just don't. They're not the kind of people that are going to be pulling alarms and say the sky is falling. That's just not their culture. But they know the sky is falling. They're just going to make do with whatever they got because that's the role of the public servant. But if you don't communicate to the elected official, they're just going to take whatever's coming in, and oftentimes they lose when the developer comes in and says, well, this is what I'm a business person and this is what I think makes my job work.
Right.
So I don't fault developers either, because yeah, if you can off that cost onto somebody else, why not?
Right.
So
Joe, thank you.
I hope this
I
is entertaining.
dude, I feel like we need to get a name for this series that we're doing, like chats with Joe or something. I'll run that by the team. Cause again, what I wanted to do, and you're brilliant at this, I get to do this all the time with you. You sometimes you call me up and you're like, I just got to show you this map. I just got to show you this thing. And you are like the epicenter of cool ideas. And I'm like, let's just share that with people, because I feel like if people could see the stuff you're working on, it would inspire them to ask a different set of questions and look at their place a little bit different, which that's what it's all about. Thanks,
We
man.
need to, yeah, let's next time we'll wear some overalls, get some like straw, put it in our mouth, some cowboy hats, and just like talking cities with Joe and Chuck, and we'll get a little pickup truck bed to sit in.
Well, you from Rome, New York, can do your Southern accent, which you somehow do really well. Um,
I've lived
well,
here too long.
yeah, yeah.
All
All
right, it was
right.
great talking with you. Thanks
Thanks,
for
friend.
yeah, good to see you.
Take care.